Thank you, Mina. Hi, everyone. So my name is François, and I'm going to talk about the modernization of motion graphics, visual effects, and post-production tool. In 2019, just before the COVID, good timing, I co-created with Alexandre Gauthier-Froichat a company named Leftangle. And we are now a team of 8 people, and we are working on a new motion design and visual effects software named Autograph, who will be released hopefully in 6 months, around 6 months. We will be exclusively distributed by the company Revision FX, who is a well-known company into the visual effects industry. So the question is, if you create a new software, what's wrong with your existing solution? What can be improved? When we talk about creating a new software, everybody said, you just have to create another After Effects and just make it work in real time and everything will be okay. Actually, it's a little bit more complicated because there's so many problems into the industry we have to solve. But calculation speed is important, and I'm going to show you how it works in Autograph. So I'm going to run the software for the first time in public. Oh, yeah. So the interface is a little bit slowed down because of the HDMI output. So, but the calculation's still good, so everything should be okay. And I'm going to load the image sequence here in EXR, a well-known image sequence, if you are a Blender user. And I'm going to press play here. And while playing, I'm going to change the composition length and going to add effect on this sequence to remove the green screen. So I'm going to use color difference scaler here. And the composition is not exactly full HD, so I'm going to select the composition and change the format of the composition. As you can see, I can do that in real time without stopping the playing. Okay. So now I have the good ratio. And I'm going to select the color difference scaler, go back to the source, select the background color, and going to inspect the raw matte. Okay. So I'm going to switch to the status, who get me information about the pixel, about the transparency of the pixels. The gray one is not fully transparent, and the white one are fully transparent, and the black one are the white ones are fully opaque, excuse me, and the black one are fully transparent. So you have to adjust the parameters, and here you can see now all the green screen is removed. Okay, and now I have a good key. As you can see, some part of the image are still transparent because of green part into the image. I'm going to work on that after this, but for now, I'm going to import a background here, put it into the back, and change the scale here, and add a blur on it to blur the background a little bit, change the blur type, and just add a blur, okay? So now I can select the foreground, go to the matte, and use a mask to add some of the green part in the foreground. So I'm gonna add something called a generator. I'm gonna talk about that in a few minutes. A generator of type fill and stroke. I'm gonna add a mask, and just draw a mask to keep this part, okay? Here. And now, if I remove the background here and check the key, I can also check it with the channel manager here. Okay, I can see I have now a perfect key. So second problem, we're going to talk about the despeel. The despeel process is to remove the green parts of the pixel who are semi-transparent, such as this part of the image with really fine air. And I'm going to get back to the final result. And there's so many different methods to remove the the green component inside this area. But we introduce a new method named the Inpaint. Okay, when you want to remove this green part, you have to subtract green information. But in this case, we are not going to subtract. We are going to create another image who retain only the fully opaque pixel and extend. I'm gonna show you, and extend the pixel around like this. So actually, you repaint all the pixel inside the fine detail, like here, like this. And using the balance here, you can choose exactly which part you are going to keep or remove. Oops, like this. Okay. So you just have to set the part you're going to keep and extend the information to completely remove the green part. Okay. Well, now I'm going to talk about accessibility, what could be improved with a widget to control, to manipulate layers. If I, I'm gonna get back to the final result here. And please pay attention to these two layers here, because in Autograph, you can select through the alpha channel. If you are an After Effects user, for instance, if you import a layer who used an alpha channel, an image who used an alpha channel, such as a PNG, you can click through the alpha channel to select the background. Here, as you can see, take a look here, when I move my mouse, I can pick through the little fine detail of the hair to select the background and then move it using this kind of widget. Instead of changing tool to move, rotate, scale, we have a unified widget with that widget. It's a little bit slow because of the HDMI. It should be real time. You can scale it here in one direction or move it in one direction. And if you press Alt, you switch to rotation and skew. So you can rotate the layers on skew these layers in this case. Okay, and we have a lot of options here to speed up the accessibility to the layers, and so many things I can show you here because I don't have any time, but a lot of selection to speed up the selection. Okay, so this is information, and we also have filters in collection. If you take a look at the image on the left, this is a classic After Effects composition. From the start to the end of the movie, you have a lot of layers, and when some layers disappear because you progress in time, actually these layers are still into the stack. We have filters who can remove from the stack only. Obviously, they are still into the composition, but they are not into the stack, to only retain the layers who are at a certain time, okay, at a given time. And here you have a graph from Nuke, okay, with a nodal approach. It's not layer-based, like in Autograph. And all the nodes into the yellow area here are not used after 1 second into the shot. And there's nothing to remove this node when you are after this time into the timeline. So we have a lot of filter options here to remove from the display, from the stack, layers according different kind of filters. And you can create collection. Collection is a list of layers or parameters, and you can choose to only display this kind of parameters at a given time. Another thing, I'm going to import hover element like this one and create a new composition. Okay, so this is another, this is PNG sequence, okay? And I'm going to duplicate this element, another one here. And if I create another composition and put this composition inside, it's like a pre-comp for After Effects users. In After Effects, if you want to access one of this spaceship, you have to go inside the composition. You can access it directly. In Autograph, you can unfold this part, you can see the source. The source of this layer is a composition. If you unfold this one, you can access to all the spaceship and move them around. Okay. So no need to enter into the composition. Actually, a composition is like a group in Autograph. Okay. It's not closed. You can enter it to access layer inside. Another thing, when you move elements like this, okay, as you can see, the format of the composition is cropping the image, is cropping the element. But in Autograph, you have this option with clipping on or clipping off. If you turn off the clipping, you can see outside of the composition. So if you have a layer who is moving into the format, you know, such as like a logo with different pieces flying around, you can see them outside of the composition to know exactly how they move. Okay. Another thing. For After Effects user, when you want to create something like fractal noise or circles or square, you need to create a solid with like a piece of image, square piece of image or rectangle, and you add effect on it. Okay, and when you create this rectangle have a limited size. Okay, but in Autograph, when you create a layer, by default an empty layer, this one is empty, it's like a null in After Effects, and you can add on this a generator, for instance, generator noise. Oh, I'm gonna turn on the clipping option, and by default, this noise is unbounded, is infinite side. So if I turn off the clipping, I can see it's fully infinite. So now I can move it around here, like that. It's pretty slow, but actually it should be retime, once again, because of the HDMI connection. You don't have to think about the size of the noise or the circle, of the square, of the triangle, polygon. Anyway, we have different kind of generators. And one of the best parts, if you can actually parent it to another layer. So on the right here, we have different kind of modules. We have the timeline. We are actually in the timeline, the parenting layer, the graph, the composition parameters. Gonna talk about that in a minute, and a few things I'm not going to talk about. So, but in this case, I'm going to show you the parenting windows, because in After Effects you have to manage the parenting inside the stack, and in Autograph we have different windows for this. So if I take the spaceship here, okay, and just make this noise semi-transparent. Now I'm going to say, okay, this spaceship here is the parent, and the noise here is the child. So now I can select the spaceship and move it around, and the noise is moving at the same time. And you don't have to think about the size of the noise because it's fully infinite. Okay. In After Effects, to do that, you have to create expression to link the center of the noise to the layer. It's quite difficult. So, the goal of this kind of generator and something called modifier, I'm going to talk about that, is to avoid the use of code and expression. A lot of After Effects users are considered experts when they know how to code expression using JavaScript, but we think it should be not necessary, not mandatory, to know how to code to create complex projects. Okay. So another thing we introduced into Autograph is the concept of modifier. I'm going to import a logo, this one, and create a new composition. Okay. So I'm going to add another generator, because generators is not only for image, it can be used for 3D objects, for numerical values, for noise, for things like that, and obviously for image. In this case, I'm going to add a noise onto the position of this layer. So I add a 2D noise, and I'm going to switch to, oh, sorry, this one. I'm going to raise the amplitude. here. Okay. Get back into the timeline. And now you can see it's nearly similar to a wiggle expression in After Effects. So now I have something like a shakering, like a shaker, okay? And now I can use the modifier here on the right. This is something what will change the value after the generation of the value by the noise. So now I can say, okay, I want this noise, but I want to add here. With this modifier, I'm going to add a value, for instance, of 300 on the x-axis. So now I change the position by adding modifier. You can add modifier and modifier and modifier on generators, on any kind of parameters. Okay. So by using expression modifier, and generators, we can reduce the need of expression. But obviously, for some case, you still need expression. So we have an expression editor. And if you are a coder and use Shadow Toy, you can create your own filters and own generators using Shadow Toy right inside the autograph, using a generator with a code editor, and you directly code inside the software. Obviously, we also have an API to control autograph with another application, with another program, or maybe a web server or web services. And you can also, obviously, create a new feature and plugin using C++ with our SDK. So, I'm going to get back into the first composition here with the chroma key. And sometimes you work on a full HD program, on a full HD sequence, and the last 2 days, your client say, okay, could you give me the 4K version or the 8K version? It's really difficult because the position of each layer was relative to this specific canvas with this specific coordinate system. And in autograph, you can say, okay, this format is in full HD, but now I want to switch to 4K, and it's done. The blur radius, the position of each element, everything is recalculated on the fly, okay? And now you just have to render this version, and you can do it also in 8K, okay? So this is the same ratio for now, but you can also change ratio on the fly to crop the element, okay? And so you don't have to touch anything, you just have to ask to autograph, please make this movie in 4K or 8K, you don't change anything. So in this case, it's the same aspect ratio, is 7:9, okay? But now we have social networks, and we have number of aspect ratio from 7:9, 4:3 for Twitter, square for Instagram, 9:16, for instance, when you have a vertical layout of a smartphone like this. And when you use something like After Effects or Nuke or anything, you have to redo the whole project from scratch or adapt the main composition to create a hybrid project if you want to make a movie in a 16:9 and, for instance, 4:3 at the same time. So we have a solution for this. I'm going to create a new composition here. Take here the logo. And instead of position it using the mouse and define the coordinate, I'm going to add a generator, once again, on the position to say, I want to anchor, I want to define the position of this element according the size of the composition. So here, I'm going to say I want to be on the left, okay. I want to be on top. It just offsets, just add an offset. Sorry. My numpad is not working. Up, like this, and maybe make it a little bit smaller. Okay, like this one. Okay, now I work on a 16:9 aspect ratio, but at the same time, I want to create the 4:3 version of this movie. I just have to switch from this aspect ratio to another one. For instance, in the last of the list is a smartphone vertical. And now it's automatically done because the placement of this logo is relative to the size of the composition. And you can also split the screen, create a new viewer, and point to exactly the same composition with composition 5 here, okay? And so, for now, that's the reason why it will be available in 6 months. A few things to fix. And here, I have exactly the same composition with different aspect ratio, and when I create an animation, I create for both versions. I don't have to copy the composition and create another composition, because if I change something into the original composition in After Effects, I have to do exactly the same change into the other version. Okay. So remember, in Autograph, a composition is a function, is like a function. You call it, you don't have to copy it, you call it with different parameters. It could be the size, but it could be any parameters, the frame rate. So for instance, you work on a 30 frames per second, on 25 frames per second, and at the end, you ask for 60 frames per second. You don't have to change anything inside. So now we're going to talk about 3D, because when you want to integrate 3D into the compositing software, into the compositing stack, you have to use an external software and render into the external software, save the path on the basis on the images on a storage. Oh, are you okay? And you have, sorry, I'm disturbed. You have to load these spaces into the compositing software and make the compositing. But it should be more interesting to take the scene, export the scene, import the scene inside the solution, render it on the fly, and composite it on the fly. And for that, we use the USD format, the Universal Scene Description. I don't know if you know it. It's made by Pixar. And it should be a universal language, because between application. It's not well defined for now, but we already integrated. For now, everything works okay, except the materials. It's difficult to define exactly the materials, but it's in progress, and we work with Pixar on this. So, I'm gonna create another composition. I'm gonna close this one. Sorry. Close, okay. Gonna switch to this composition. Okay. And I have Blender here with a scene like this, with a left angle logo and multiple cameras in it, moving cameras, like that. I previously exported this scene in the USD format, and now I'm going to create a new layer and add on it a generator. Remember the concept of generator, a generator renderer. Okay, so we have our own render engine, and I'm gonna talk about the render engine after that, because we could link external render engine. So now I'm gonna import the USD scene. That's the logo, this one. And now I drag and drop the scene to the renderer. Just take a few seconds to load the scene. I'm gonna adjust the duration. So remember, it's 48. 40. Yeah, cap locks is on. Okay. And I'm gonna press play. And now I'm gonna switch from camera to another camera. Okay. So it's not a pre-render. It's render on the fly by Autograph, by our 3D render engine. And you can access to any path, to the alpha channel, anything is possible, okay? You could have the diffuse path, the reflection path, the ZDF. In this case, Cryptomat is not really useful, because after importing this scene into Autograph, you can access the object. You can take the logo, move it on the right, change the material. You can do that right inside Autograph. You don't have to go back into Blender. Everything can be tweaked here. So in this case, it's a small scene, but here is a test with another scene, a scene I work on for tutorial purposes when the software will be out. And this is the landing of a spaceship, like this. So it's fully in 3D, and you can see here it's quite huge. There's a lot of polygon in here. Okay, it's quite detailed, a lot of details. I'm gonna import the scene. It's this one. And I have spaceship low and spaceship high. This one is high, with a lot of polygon. You can see the difference in the file size. And gonna link this new scene to the same renderer. Now we switch to this one. It's pretty quick to load. And gonna switch to this camera. Okay, it's maybe a bit dark. So we have post processes on the fly to brighten it up a bit. Okay. And also, I'm gonna change the duration of the composition, maybe 200 frames. Okay. So once again, it's rendered on the fly. It's not a pre-render, and I can also take this element, duplicate it, and move it like this. Okay. Once again, it's a bit slow because of the connection. It should be faster than that. And now you can move the elements and duplicate and offset in time and retime also. You can slow down the action before the landing and stuff like that directly inside the software. My slide is here. And because you are in a compositing system, instead of linking image, external image on your external storage, you can create a composition and link this composition into one of the slots of the material. So you can create animated material in PBR material, okay, using the composition. It can be fully procedural. So you prepare the composition, you link them to the material, you link the material to an object inside the Scene Explorer, and you render it on the fly with another composition, right? I'm not going to show you right now because I don't have any sound here into the computer, but we also have an audio timeline. Actually, it's a separated stack. If you are an After Effects user, you know in the same stack you can put some graphical elements and some audio elements. In Autograph, we have two different stacks because in the graphical stack, the graphic stacks, we have a generator and analyzer who can check the audio stack to be driven by the audio. For instance, if you put 3 or 5 audio sources into the bottom stack, you can mix them. And on the upper stack, you can add an analyzer, a spectral analyzer, to say, okay, in this mix down, who is done on the fly, it's not pre-rendered, I want to only take these frequencies, this frequency band, and use this frequency band to drive a rotation, a position, any kind of parameters. Okay, so you don't have to create keyframes to make the analyze. It's done in real time and on the fly. And one last thing, because I have 10 minutes, but I'll be shorter. The most important is to be connected to data. If you have to create a graphics movie, an opening, an ad, something like that, as an artist, you have to think about the visual, but the title, is it well written? If you have any, it's not your problem, okay? Your job is to make it beautiful, but is it the right title? Is not your job, okay? So it's interesting to externalize this kind of information into data, into externalized data. And in the case of Autograph, you can link to external files, such as Excel file, CSV file, database, SQLite, Google Sheet, maybe a REST API if you ask for information to a web services, an external web services. And I'm going to create another composition and turn off the post-process. Here I have two sheets. The first one is with numerical values. So it should be angle. I wrote angle, but it should be anything. And here I'm going to connect to this table. It's not an import, but it's a connection. Okay. I'm going to import this table and add on the rotation a generator bind to table. And now I can link this table here and use this information in this column to drive the rotation value. Okay. So for instance, this one is 30 degrees, but if I set the row index to 1, now it's the second row, so it's 15 degrees, and so on. Okay. And if I create an animation key here, oh, sorry, here. Okay, so I create a keyframe, and I'm going to switch to 3. As you can see, I switch from one row to another. Okay, so this is for numerical value, but it could be any kind of value. I'm going to create a last composition and create a text. Okay. By default, the source text is autograph text, but once again, I can connect to another table. This one, languages. And this is my languages table. If you have to work on multilingual project, okay, you are not going to type the text right inside autograph, but you are going to link to this file. Okay, and you don't care about the content. It's not your job. Your job is just to make the layout and make it beautiful. Okay, so now I create a new generator, bind to table. I'm going to connect to this table here. Okay, and first line, hola. Second line, this one, sorry. Hello. Second line, up. Third line, number 2. Ah, sorry. Okay, and last line, bonjour. Okay. In this case, the row index is a local settings. Okay, you have to unfold the parameters and you have to access to the settings to change it. But actually, you can define composition parameters. Composition parameters are global variables in the scope of the composition, and you can link these parameters to the composition parameters. So in this windows, if you create composition parameters on the right here, you have all the exposed parameters, and you just have to select to change these parameters, and all the connected parameters inside the composition will switch to this value. Okay. So if you connect each text layer to this kind of sheet, you have just to call the same composition again. You don't make any copy. Remember, composition is a function in autograph. You don't have to copy it. You have to call it with different parameters. And in this case, you just have to call exactly the same composition with different value. Say, okay, I want the English value, I want the Spanish value, I want the French value, and you just have to relaunch the rendering, and it's finished. Okay, you don't have to reopen the project. And if you combine this with the multi-format feature, 7:9, 4:3, 3:2, maybe one day, I don't know. You don't have to retouch the original composition. You just have only one composition to make multi-format project and also multilingual project. Okay. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any question, I will be fully available until tomorrow at night. And I will be at the KIKK village on the Rhône-Alpes delegation, far away on the left. It should be cold because we have the colder stand into the event, I guess. So take a coat, please. Take a look, she's already sick. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have questions, feel free to ask. Thank you.